What's up, guys? Welcome back to Wildcat Cave. Today we're going to be going over the Kentucky Wildcats football team and their 2021 season schedule, and we're going to be trying to make some predictions about how their season is going to go. We'll start off here talking about last season. Last season under head coach Mark Stoops, they went 5-6 overall and 4-6 in their all SEC COVID schedule. Their wins coming against Mississippi State, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, and South Carolina. Of course, with the season-ending bowl win against NC State, who at the time was ranked 23rd. Overall, not a bad year for them. Not where they hoped to be, really, in the all SEC schedule. But all things considered, with COVID and playing the 10-game SEC schedule, not too bad. They definitely dropped the ball in some games they wanted to win, no doubt. There was games they were in that they probably should have won that they let get away from them. So I think Stoops is building a really solid program here, and they're looking to take the next step, specifically in the SEC East, and try to become a contender in the East this coming season. You know, Stoops has done a good job not only getting to bowl games, but winning them. They've won something like the last 4 out of the 5 with a couple big games sprinkled in there. A win over Florida, a win over Tennessee, and of course their bowl wins coming against Penn State, NC State, who was ranked last year, and a couple other really solid wins. I believe Virginia Tech in the Belk Bowl a couple years ago. So they're really looking to, keep building their program up until they are a true contender in the SEC East. I think right now they're just a step outside of that, but give it 5 years, things keep trending upwards for Kentucky. I think you're going to see them put on real contests with the likes of Florida and Georgia. So starting with some people they lost over this past offseason. QB Terry Wilson, obviously one of the big ones. He's been their starter minus injury for the past couple years now. He has transferred to New Mexico for his final year of eligibility. Personally, as a UK fan, I like Terry. I think he did a lot of good for the program, but I'm excited to see. I think Terry's ceiling is a lot lower than what we have now at that position. So I think you're going to see a lot more of a passing attack. That's one thing. As athletic and good as Terry was, he didn't have that big arm talent where it really just kind of surprised you with some of the plays he can make. So I'm looking forward to, seeing what's after the Terry era. Again, A.J. Rose split carries with a lot of the guys returning this year. So a good running back, but not a huge loss considering what's coming back. Wide receiver Allen Daly didn't get a ton of playing time last year. Not that Kentucky throws the ball a whole lot anyway in the past. Offensive linemen Landon Young and Drake Jackson, two NFL caliber guys, went in the draft this year. Landon Young did anyway. I think Drake Jackson's in free agency. But both really good guys. Kentucky guys. So part of Kentucky's strength in the past couple years and now is their big blue wall, their front line on offense. So definitely not something to look over with them losing those big guys up front. And of course, Mark Stoops fires his longtime friend Eddie Gran as their offensive coordinator. Fans and people just around the program in general have been calling for this for a couple years now. Not having a passing attack has really been a problem for Kentucky's offense, as well as now playing the 10-game SEC schedule. It put a clear marker on where they need to be as far as scoring and offense goes, and last year really exposed how far behind they were in the SEC. So they had to make a move, got rid of Eddie Gran. And on defense, your biggest loss is going to be your linebacker Jamin Davis. Went high first round to the Redskins the Washington football team in the draft. He was a guy that wasn't supposed to even start, and now he played his way into a first-round draft pick. So you know how much talent he had, and how much Kentucky is losing in that position now. Keldon Joseph at corner, also a draft pick in the most recent NFL draft. He opted out of the last 2 games of the season, being the last regular season game and the bowl game they played last year. I believe he led Kentucky in interceptions with 7 last year, so he definitely going to be missed. But as far as true talent, good, not great. But he's going to be something they're going to have to replace, but maybe not as big of a loss as Jamin Davis. Same thing with Brandon Eccles, a good solid starter, but can be replaced, and maybe even with a positive. Maybe some of the guys they have now might be better than what they produced. And then up front, you lost Quentin Bohanna and Phil Hoskins, two veterans. Uh, Kentucky didn't have a great pass rush last year anyway, so hopefully they can improve on that, even though they lost those two guys. And then their punter, Max Duffy, who was probably the best punter in the NCAA for 2 straight years. Punter oftentimes gets overlooked, but it's really hard to understate how crucial it is to be able to flip fields and give your defense that big boost that they need, or that help, the extra 10 or 15 yards on a punt that keeps maybe the other team out of field goal range when your defense isn't doing so good. Now, there's a lot of people coming back or new additions to the team this year, especially with the first year of the transfer portal. And the NIL, I'm sure, plays some factor into this. Number one on offense, obviously the biggest returning guy, Chris Rodriguez, arguably best running back returning in the SEC. Guaranteed probably top 5 in the country. So Kentucky, obviously being the running team they are, is really looking to build around him. He's going to be the focal point of their offense. Then you have quarterback Will Levis coming in and Joey Gatewood returning. That's kind of Kentucky's big secret right now. Mark Stoops is holding his cards very close to his chest with these two guys. It was reported that Gatewood had a very strong spring camp. Levis was, of course, not on campus at that point, but since he has came in, all signs are pointing towards Will Levis starting the season as the starting quarterback. It's likely you see both guys at some point, and maybe even Bo Allen, the redshirt sophomore. But with Levis coming in so late, and then everything you're hearing around the program is that he's going to be started, that should really speak to how impressed these coaches are with him coming in that late and being able to take first-team reps already. Offensive lineman Darian Kennard, the best lineman in college football for sure, without a doubt. I know Kentucky lost Landon Young and Drake Jackson last year, but this guy really is the focal point of the O-line, as well as the transfer from LSU, Dare Rosenthal, coming in the past couple of weeks. So that's going to be huge. They lost some really good guys, but with Kennard and Rosenthal at each tackle, whoever the starting quarterback is really should be well protected, as well as the run game. I look for Kentucky to be just as effective in their run game, especially if they're able to open up the pass and keep the safeties and corners honest. Also returning at running back, you're looking at Kavosiey Smoke. If Chris Rodriguez is your downhill power back, Kavosiey Smoke is your speed outside runner, outside the tackle guy. He's the guy that can pick up big yards quick. I expect them to split the carries, maybe not 50-50, probably Rodriguez 60-40 or 70-30, but Kavosiey Smoke's definitely going to get his fair share of touches. And then another massive transfer out of Nebraska coming back home to Kentucky is Wan'Dale Robinson. This guy's a Lynn Bowden-esque type player, a Paul Hornung Award finalist. Every time this guy touches the ball, it's going to be a highlight reel. He's a guy that can take it to the house at any point in time. So they're going to find all sorts of ways to get him the ball out of the backfield or out of the slot. He's going to be probably the focal point of their offense next to Rodriguez. And then Josh Ali, of course, coming back, their number one wide receiver from last year, had the most catches, most passing attempts. So it's good that they have him and Wan'Dale this year. I think their passing game is going to take a huge step forward. And then on the line, you're going to be returning Luke Fortner and the incoming freshman Jagger Burton. I don't know how much time Jagger's going to get. He is a freshman coming in, but he's huge. He's strong. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get some reps on the field this year. And then, of course, replacing Eddie Gran is Liam Cohen at the offensive coordinator. Came in as a assistant position coach from the Rams. Had a couple jobs up in the Northeast before that. He says he wants to bring a pro-style offense to Kentucky, which is awesome. That's something that Kentucky fans haven't seen since maybe Hal Mummy, and even that was more of an air raid. So I think this offense is going to be really balanced. If Will Levis or Joey Gatewood, whoever gets the starting spot, is as good as advertised, I think you're going to see him take a huge step forward in offensive production this year. On defense, you have Quandre Mosley, Devontae Robinson. As much as they lost in Jamin Davis and a couple others, last year at the linebacking core. Just look at all these linebackers you have coming in. And DeAndre Square, Justice Dingle out of Georgia Tech, Luke Fulton out of, where did he come from? Michigan State. You know, really solid guys. Jaquez Jones, J.J. Weaver coming back, Jordan Wright coming back. All of these guys, it wouldn't surprise me to see him have a 5, 6, potentially even 7th man rotation coming in a linebacker. It went from maybe our most depleted position group to an absolutely loaded linebacker room. All these guys are downhill players, physical, athletic, and I don't think we're going to, as much as you're going to miss Jamin Davis, I don't think we're going to miss a beat as far as being able to keep fresh legs on the field and hard-hitting, smart players. And then holding it down on the D-line is Josh Paschal. He is maybe a step below what Josh Allen was when he played here. They played together, I think, for a year or two, but Josh Paschal is going to be able to get to the quarterback, set the edge on defense, and he's going to be what anchors down our front. That might be the weakest point on our defense this year is the front line. Hopefully we're able to get some pressure on opposing quarterbacks and cause problems there. And then, of course, kicker Matt Ruffalo. I think he was something like 12 for 14 last year and 1 for 1 over 50, so not a bad kicker. This is our schedule this year, guys. You open up with ULM, University of Louisiana Monroe. Then you have Mizzou and Chattanooga at home, South Carolina on the road, Florida, LSU at home, at Georgia, at Mississippi State, Tennessee at home, at Vandy, New Mexico State at home, and then Louisville. Now we're going to go down through each of these games here and break it down, kind of tell you a little bit about each of them and get some predictions in. And then at the end, we'll kind of wrap it up, see what the overall schedule is, and see what the record are and what we can, hopefully look forward to come bowl season. So week 1, there's not a whole lot you can say about this game, man. ULM is the best thing they got going for them is their head coach is Terry Bowden, son of Bobby Bowden. Last year didn't have much luck. The team went 0-10. No real notable anything really for this team. Should be an easy win. I think Kentucky opened as a 28.5 point favorite. I would go ahead and take the over on that, especially if their passing game is established and they come in strong week 1, even though it is a new offense. Look for that to be a big, way to start and a good momentum shift going into week number 2 with Mizzou. So again, Kentucky's going to beat ULM pretty handily and get the week 1 win at home. Week 2, like I said, in my opinion, this week here will hinge the entire season. I know it's early, and I know it's a tough game. This is probably the team in the SEC that is on the same tier as Kentucky. Both are talented. Both just need to take that next step up to challenge for the East. Both of them obviously looking to do that this year. Last year, Mizzou went 5-5, all SEC. I don't believe they played a bowl game. And this will be, and that was under first-year head coach Eli Drinkowitz. New coach, nobody expected a whole lot. They expected to do a 2 to 3 win season. They came out with 5-5 in an all SEC schedule, so not terrible. The one thing that stands out to me though is last year they were 1-3 on the road. And I looked back a couple years prior to that as well, and they've always not been great road teams. It seems like this, if Kentucky had their number for a little bit, and now it's kind of evening out. But with it being at home, it really favors Kentucky because Mizzou is not a great road team in recent years. They still are returning Bazelak as their quarterback. Again, kind of a middle of the road. He's not going to win you any games, but he's not going to lose you any games. And their strength on offense is going to be their running back core of Beatty and Young. Both really good guys. Beatty, I believe, is their starter. He's another strong downhill runner, an SEC type back, and a top tier SEC type back. So between him and Rodriguez, you're going to see a solid run game. On defense, nothing too notable. Good, not great again. Their defensive back is probably their strongest core. It's going to be hard for a Kentucky team with a new offense and a new quarterback. If they haven't got their passing game together by now, it's going to be really difficult for them to do it in this game. I look for Kentucky to run the ball as much as they can, stay behind them big O linemen, let Chris Rodriguez and Kavasier Smoke just eat up clock and eat up yards. Throw the ball when needed. If Kentucky can get out maybe a touchdown early, with them being at home, I'm going to give Kentucky the win. really, this is 51% Kentucky, 49% Mizzou. It's going to be a really close game, but if you can win this game, if you're Kentucky, this sets you up a lot better for the rest of the season. It gives you a little more breathing room when you get into October and you have that really tough stretch, which we'll get into here in a second, obviously. Up next, we have Chattanooga coming to town. Again, not a whole lot to say with Chattanooga. They've only played 5 games last year. They went 3-2 under head coach Rusty Wright. Nobody notable necessarily on their team. Nobody that should give Kentucky big issues. Should be a pretty handily win again by Kentucky. Chattanooga's probably better than ULM, but not a Power 5 school. Kentucky should have no problem with these guys. Up next is Kentucky's first road game, and it is a true road game. South Carolina is no joke. Even if they're a bad team, playing at South Carolina is always difficult. This is the team Kentucky in recent years has kind of started to pull away from. Maybe when Mark Stoops first came to town, this was the team that was level par with Kentucky. This was a team that, you wanted to be able to consistently beat to get to that next level. And I believe now they're there. I think they've won 6 out of the last 7 meetings with them. So I believe Kentucky has overcame the South Carolina bug, and now they're looking to move up. Last year, under head coach Shane Beamer, actually this is Shane Beamer's first season as their head coach. Last year they went 2-8. Beamer's been making some very bold comments here this week at SEC Media Days. He even went as far as to call out Kentucky. And, so I'm sure they'll have that playing on repeat in the locker room this week for Kentucky. This is their first true test, SEC, on the road anyway, not necessarily in the SEC with Mizzou 2 weeks prior. But like I said, they lost 5 DBs, their leading tackler, quarterback, and wide receiver. So South Carolina's looking to rebuild a little bit, but they're definitely not afraid of Kentucky. So it's going to be a good game. It should be a good game. I'd say it's going to be within 2 scores either way. Luke Doty, their quarterback, stepped into the final 2 games of the season last year for, I believe his name's Colin Hill. And they're returning their running back who had over 1,100 yards last year. So definitely not a slouch. Kentucky can't afford to overlook these guys into week 5. But I think Kentucky can get it done. I think they still have their number, and South Carolina's still trying to work their way up. They're kind of a mess as a program right now, and I think that works to Kentucky's favor, and they get the win here in week 4. Now, going into week 5, this is when it gets tough for Kentucky. This game is October 2nd, and pretty much the whole month of October is just a nightmare for Kentucky. You get Florida at home here. Florida went 8-4 last year. Kind of got embarrassed by Oklahoma in their bowl game, but still, Dan Mullen will have these guys ready, no doubt. It's obvious they lost Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts and their wide receiver Tony, and they don't really have a clear number 1 running back. I think it's going to be a running back by committee for Florida this year. They have a good O-line, some experience, some new guys, and a new defensive front. Their defense is going to have to step up from what they were last year if they really want to contend with Georgia in the East and try to get to that SEC championship in Atlanta. Overall, Florida's not a bad team. It's always a good game when Kentucky plays them at home. They got one from them in Florida a couple years ago. They've played them close the past couple years. They usually have a chance to win it and ended up blowing it, or there's a bad call, or something happens to Kentucky that end up causing them to lose the game. I look for this one to be really good, a really solid game at home, as well as the next week, which we'll talk about here in a second. Like I said, Florida's defense is going to have to step up, and they're losing a lot, but their new quarterback coming in, Emory Jones, is supposed to be really, really good. So I'm going to give Florida the win here, but, don't be surprised if Kentucky pulls this one off. It's going to be close. Like I said with the Mizzou game, Kentucky 51%. I'm going to give Florida maybe 55 to 60%. Kentucky has a solid chance to win this game if they can, especially if they get their passing going. Like I said, they have some issues on defense that Florida needs to correct. But if they do that, they'll probably win the game. Now, week 6, going into LSU, I kind of group Florida and LSU into the same category. They're both good. They're both still building up to get back into contention for the East and the West and the SEC. LSU took a step back, going 5-5 last year after coming off the undefeated championship run. They lost a ton of people on defense, and they have a quarterback battle going on right now. So their situation is kind of unclear. I'm not sure exactly which game it's going to be. I think Kentucky either beats Florida or LSU. I don't think they go 2-0 in those games, but I believe they're going to split it. But looking at each game individually, I'm not sure which one. I'm going to give LSU the win on this one. But again, same thing as the Florida game. Kentucky probably has a 45 to 49% chance to win this game. It's going to be close. It's going to be a good game, especially being in Lexington. Don't be surprised if Kentucky comes in and gets one from either Florida or LSU, even though they're not going to be favored in either, I don't believe. And then by far the hardest game of the season for Kentucky is going to be Georgia. They're returning JT Daniels, their running back Zamir White, a solid offensive line, high quality receiver talent, a pretty new defense, but a lot of experience in their line and solid experience in their backs. So again, it's going to be hard for Kentucky to get a passing game going. Georgia probably has the best D line in the SEC. So even as good as Kentucky's O-line is in their running game, it's going to be hard for them to get their feet off the ground. Now, granted, they've played Georgia close for 2 years in a row now. One was a 21-0 and a 14-3 loss. And this one's at home. I think Kentucky keeps it competitive, maybe even tied or slightly up at halftime. Georgia's going to pull out the win. They're probably the second best team in the SEC. And this, if there's going to be a year Georgia run or is a contender nationally and contend with Alabama late in the season, it's probably going to be this year. But, they're just going to be too much for Kentucky this year, especially at Georgia. Then week 9, we have a bye week after the Georgia week, so it goes from week 7 to 9 on here. That's why week 8 is Kentucky's bye. We go to Mississippi State under head coach Mike Leach in his second year. Obviously, Mississippi State runs the air raid offense. Very exciting, very fun. Last year they went 3-8, 2-8 in the SEC. Won their game in the Armed Forces Bowl against Tulsa. Their air raid offense is exciting. It's fun to watch. They returned 3 of their 4 top wide receivers, their top 2 running backs, and their sophomore quarterback. So they have a lot of experience coming back in that air raid system, with last year being their first year in it. I look for their offense truly to take a step forward. It's going to be fun. They're going to score a lot of points in a lot of games. It's going to be a test for Kentucky's D-backs and linebackers to cover all of their guys. It's going to be a shootout in Starkville. The thing that might be Kentucky's saving grace is that Mississippi State's defense is going to take a step back this year. They lost a lot of experience on defense, on a defense that was already not the best anyway. Kentucky won this game 24-2 last year, but it was in Lexington. Again, I think it's a close game. I think Mississippi State is a hard place to play, and they're going to put up a good fight. I think Kentucky's just going to be a little too much. Another 7 to 10 point game probably, if that. So keep an eye on this game. This is one Kentucky could easily drop if they don't come ready to play. Then we have the border rivalry. We have Tennessee coming to Lexington this year. Tennessee last year was 3-7. They just fired their coach and got new head coach Josh Heupel out of UCF. Not a bad coach at UCF, honestly. 28-8 was his overall record in his, I believe, 3 years there. Not a terrible team down there. But he's come to Tennessee, a program that is in complete disarray right now. They don't know which way is up. They have scandals and, paying players before NIL. They have 25 guys in the portal. They don't know who their quarterback's going to be. Tennessee they're a mess right now. And I know everybody thinks that Tennessee just has Kentucky's number, because they have. In the past 30-something years, they've beat them like twice, which is terrible. But I truly believe Kentucky is just head and shoulders better than Tennessee this year. I don't believe Tennessee's going to get it done. Maybe in a couple years after Heupel was able to get his system implanted, get the players that he recruited in there. But right now, Tennessee, I don't believe, is in a place to beat Kentucky. I think Kentucky should win by at least 2 touchdowns in this game. Then Kentucky travels back into the Tennessee to take on Vandy in Nashville. They have another first-year head coach here. Last year, Vandy was 0-9. Obviously, their new head coach, Clark Lee, took over for Derek Mason this year. He was the former D coordinator at Notre Dame. I look for that to be a positive for Vandy. Obviously, if you go 0-9, you're not stopping a whole lot of people. So I expect that, bringing in a big time college's coordinator is going to be a good for Vandy's defense. Their returning quarterback Ken Seals or Wright, whoever gets the job, probably Seals. They got a transfer Davis at running back, looking to be back and good. Their O-line opted out. I believe 4 of their O-line starters opted out last season, and they're looking for them to come and make a strong return. I think Vandy is going to be semi-surprising this year. They're not going to win a lot, but they will. I would predict they get at least one SEC win this year. I don't think it's going to be Kentucky, but I think Vandy has a chance to upset somebody on their schedule this year. But with that, Kentucky at Vandy, I'm still going to give Kentucky the win this year. Then New Mexico State comes into town. Again, not much to say about this game. They had their head coach Doug Martin didn't have a great season last year. They're one of the teams that end up playing in the spring due to COVID. They went 1-1. They only played 2 games. So even whoever you return is not a lot of experience. Easy win for Kentucky this year, going into the Governor's Cup game with Louisville. Now, Louisville was 4-7 last year. Is their head running back transferred? They are going to return their quarterback Cunningham, who is very much more athletic. Terry Wilson doesn't really have the arm to make plays. He runs really well and he can be a playmaker, but typically not with his arm. Like I said, their running back left last year, or this year. Their running back last year has left this coming year, so they're not returning him. They returned most of their O-line, but their O-line's still not great. A young D-line, but they are deep at that position, so they're able to rotate and potentially wear down Kentucky. They lost a lot of their defensive backs, excuse me. But other than that, they do return some guys on D, so I think their defense will stay even par to what it was last year, maybe a step better. But honestly, Kentucky has beat these guys by like a combined 70 points in the past 2 meetings. So I don't expect anything to change. I believe the Governor's Cup is also coming back home to Kentucky this season. So with all of that being said, this is a hard one for me because I'm a Kentucky fan and I know what their potential is, but I also know how they play. So with what I've just explained, I got their final record at 9-3. Now, with that being said, that is looking at every game individually. When you look at every one of their games individually, there's no reason they couldn't go 9-3, losing to Florida, LSU, and Georgia. Like I said, I expect them to pick up either Florida or LSU. I believe they're going to go 1-1 in those games. They're not going to lose both games. However, when you look at the season as a whole, Kentucky usually wins one big game, like I said, the Florida or LSU game, but they're going to drop a game they should win, whether that be the Mizzou game that I have them winning, whether that be at Mississippi State, whether that be, any game on the season, whether that be the Tennessee game they should win, or potentially, the Louisville game. They typically win one they shouldn't and lose one they shouldn't. So if you look at the season as a whole, I think a realistic, solid year for them is going to be an 8-4 season. Now, with that being said, their absolute ceiling, I think, is 10-2. That is if they come out ready to play every single game, firing, on all cylinders from the first game of the season. I think, their losses are going to be Georgia and then either LSU or Florida if they played every game to their absolute potential. I really believe those are the only games that the team that they're playing is truly better than them, talent-wise, anyways. Now their floor is probably 7-5. Like I said, an 8-4, 9-3 season is probably what you're looking at. If you drop all 3 games to LSU, Florida, Georgia, and then potentially the Mizzou and Mississippi State game or some other combination, you're looking at 7-5. I don't think they go worse than that. I think this team is too talented, honestly, to do any worse than that. So that's it, guys. That is my prediction for the Kentucky Wildcats for the 2021 season. I hope you guys enjoyed. Follow along. I'm going to be posting more videos, hopefully 1 or 2 a week. talking about not only Kentucky but other SEC things as well. Like, subscribe, comment, share, guys. I'll do my best to reply to every single comment that I can, especially now that the channel's young. So, guys, I'll see you next time.